And this is central planning.
But that's probably where most policymakers in America got wrong about China in the engagement period of time, because they thought that maybe liberalization will create the middle class, and the middle class will demand
Yes.
more political level. But but it turned out that the story isn't goes that well. So what people get wrong about China?
Yeah, I have to say one thing about Americans. I love my country and I'm very patriotic. But one thing I get upset about is Americans don't realize how wealthy they are, how lucky they are. There's so many problems you can point out here, and we're still better off. And that's a point that I want Americans to understand. The flip side is Americans are very naive and they think that other people want what we have. Well, they certainly want the material things, and they watch the same movies we do. You know, the top 10 grossing movies around the world are usually American movies, or 8 out of 10 of them are American movies. They've all seen every Marvel movie, every, Jason Statham action, The Expendables. They've seen all this and they want what we have. That is true. But they don't understand democracy, the right to vote, the right to choose. They don't want freedom of religion because they don't have freedom of religion. I don't mean that they don't want it, but they don't lie in bed at night. Oh, if only we had freedom of religion. No, they don't know. They don't. If you don't have religion, why would you care about freedom of religion? If you've never voted, why would you care about voting? How would you even believe for a second that you are capable of choosing between two candidates? And I'm not saying they're not capable. This is their argument to me. They tell me, they'll always say, 我们没有你们美国人的那个聪明. They actually say that to me. They'd say to me, we don't have your intelligence. We don't know how to choose our president. But it was something they were told to say. But on some level, they also believe it. How do you choose a president? I question that in this. How do you choose? Right? So they don't necessarily want these things, but the belief, and it started way back with the Korean War. Started with the Berlin Wall, and then it started with the Korean War and Kennan and the containment policy on the Soviet Union and on communism, where we said, first we said we want to keep this communism from spreading to other places. That was the first stage. And then towards the 80s and 90s, when we started saying, we should normalize relations with China and with other communist countries, eventually with Vietnam as well. And the idea was, if we normalize with them and we allow trade, they will get richer. And there's no way that a middle class would ever accept having these social controls put on them. What do you mean I can't go where I want to go? What do you mean I can't move? I'm middle class, I have money. I can't have religion. I can't say this, I can't say this. But what we missed was that the people don't know about this. They never had this. And while they have our movies, the movies are censored, and they don't have our TV. Right? Since Xi Jinping came in, there's almost no American TV shows on Chinese TV. The Great Firewall of China prevents the internet sites from coming in, so they really don't know what's going on. And I always, whenever the Wu Mao attack me on Twitter, I always say to them, listen, you've got a VPN now, and you're allowed to look at the outside. I said, do yourself a favor, do a little research. Look at what you're missing out on. Look at this. Look at Google on here, because I know this is what they do. They look for Americans saying something bad about America, and then they'll jump in and support that. I'll say, do you understand the freedom that we have to say something bad about our leader? That's amazing. You don't have that. So you got the VPN now, learn something, I don't know if they listen to me.
So you spend a lot of time in China. You make a lot of Chinese friends.
Yes.
And I think I can see that you really love China.
Yes.
But why? And yet you speak to us. At the times you appear on shows. Apparently, you are being in China now. Right?
Yeah. I can't go back to China. Yeah, I had to leave in 2019, and I can't go back to China or Hong Kong.
Why did you do that?
It just became very dangerous. I realized in 2019 that I was at the limit of what I could do, what I could get away with, and that very soon I was probably gonna have a problem, and I left.
What's going on?
Well, for one thing, at that time I was a headmaster of a school just outside it was in Shandong, and they were having another crackdown on religion, and the police came onto the campus. They made us fill out forms explaining what our religion was, and basically swearing that we would not do any religious activity on the campus and things like this. And they had never done that before. We had the Communist Youth League or the Communist Party cell on campus would generally send us a message every year reminding us not to celebrate Christmas or not to have religious, whatever. But this was the first time I ever had to sign anything. So that kind of scared me. And there was a lot of crackdown on, because of the trade war. There's a lot of crackdown on foreigners working in China, particularly Americans. I was working for a Chinese government think tank, writing about U.S. policies, but I was writing parallel stories for American entities condemning China basically. So the Chinese were paying me just to explain. Say, this is what Donald Trump said. What does that mean? And I would write, a report explaining the policies, interpreting. That's it. But on the American side, I was finding out what's really going on behind the scenes, and I was writing about it. And so at that point, I said, okay, I got one foot in each camp, and now the police are coming on the campus. And then suddenly I couldn't get work permits for any of my employees. So none of them had proper work permits, and we couldn't get them. But foreign employees, we could. Yeah, suddenly it was very difficult to get work permits. And then one of my employees went to the bank. He went to the ATM machine. He put his card, and it wouldn't give him his money. And it said, "You must see the officials or something, the administration."
You have a company there?
I had, yeah. Well, so I was a headmaster. I was running a school. So it was a joint venture from New York and China. That we had a New York high school in China. It was a New York Region's high school in China, and I was the headmaster. And so I had American and foreign employees that were teachers. So I was trying to get their work permits and everything, and suddenly we just couldn't do that. It was just getting impossible. And I had another friend that was running, he was American, he was running a peer-to-peer lending business, and the office got raided and everyone got arrested except him. And so he left, and I think it's time for me to leave as well. So that's why I left China.
This before the pandemic.
Just before, so the spring of 2019. So I moved to Mongolia because one, I wanted to go to Mongolia for wrestling, and I've always wanted to go to Mongolia, and it's the home of wrestling. So I went to Mongolia, and I figured it's close enough to China that I could keep an eye. Now, when I got to Mongolia, I did not realize when I got to Mongolia how important China and Russia are to Mongolia, because Mongolia is stuck in between China and Russia. I guess I never thought about it. When I got there, I realized on a daily basis, I was dealing with China and dealing with people that are dealing with China. And my counterparts at the Bank of Mongolia and various think tanks and universities, this is all we were talking about. And they would call me in to, again, now to explain China's policies and what do you think's going to happen with China and the economy. And I didn't realize Mongolian economy is, 80% dependent on China. So then suddenly that became a really good place for me to stay. So I stayed there for 4 years writing. And then I wasn't under any restraints, and I could write whatever I wanted about China and not have to worry about getting arrested.
So you spent 4 years in Mongolia?
Yeah, I spent 4 years. From
2019.
2019 until May of this year. I came back in May.
You came back in May.
Yeah, so 2019 I moved to Mongolia. 2020 when the pandemic started, I got a call from the U.S. Embassy that said Mongolian government, because Mongolia has a really good relationship with the United States, and so the government said, listen, if you want to stay, it's fine. They give us permission to stay, but they said Friday we're closing the border, and if you're here on Friday, you can't get out again until we don't know when. So the embassy said, we'll fly you out or you can stay. And I said, okay, I'm going to stay. And so they closed the border. That was a hard night. That was a scary night. The night that I knew that as of tomorrow, I can't leave. And yeah, I was stuck there until the pandemic.
So after the night, you spent 4 years.
Yeah, spent 4 years there.
Wow. So you were headmaster of the school in China.
Yes, yes.
But at the same time, you were also working for
Think tank, yeah. Yeah. I was working for a China government-backed think tank, and I was working for some American entities as well, doing reporting on China.
What think tank?
That was the Shanghai Institute of American Studies. And they started when the election, when Trump was running for president. So it started there, that they wanted to know what stories from Trump's business world that he was going to bring with him to the White House and things like that. And then when the tariffs started coming and interpreting the tariffs, and then I was giving a lot of lectures around China, a keynote speaker for international groups as well, because I wrote a book about the Belt and Road Initiative as well. So I was talking about that and about China-US relations. I was giving a lot of lectures, which were going okay, and I didn't have any problems yet, but I kept getting sort of people telling me, look, you can't say this, you can't say that in the lectures. And then I just, like I said, by 2019, I realized that it just wasn't going to be safe to keep doing what I was doing.
Looking back, what do you think the red line is? What red line did you cross?
Did I cross?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the red line would be, but I was dreading any day. It never happened, but I was dreading a day that they would call me in at the think tank and say, "Did you write this piece?" Or there'd be police in the office going, "Did you write this?"
Call you all the time and check if you want.
No, somehow that didn't happen. Yeah. Didn't happen. But that's what I was afraid of, that was eventually going to happen. Yeah.
eventually you didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know. So I went to Mongolia, but then after I got into Mongolia, then I was writing unbridled. Whatever I was really thinking came out, really, without any hesitation, without any reservation. So there was a crackdown on Mongolian culture in Inner Mongolia, Nemongol. And so I started writing about that. And I was getting information through the Mongolians because they all know each other on both sides of the border. They don't care there's a border, they all know each other. And so they were coming to me with information. Oh, my cousin is there, or whatever, their friend is there, and they're giving me the information. I was writing about it. So I had a lot of information that nobody else had because journalists were banned at one point from entering. Foreign journalists couldn't get in. So I was writing a lot. And next thing I know, there's a strange call at the university. I was teaching at the university, the American University in Mongolia, and they get a strange call. Somebody's trying to find out if I work there, and where does he live, and this and that. And then the embassy called me in for security briefings. They thought maybe it was the Chinese government. And we had a couple of instances like that. And most recently was about 4, 5, 6 months ago. Something like that happened again. And so.
But you don't really know that you are banned, right, in China.
No, but I would not risk. Yeah, they didn't actually tell me that I'm banned, but
this is what scary part is, right? You don't know where the red line is. You just maybe there's a red line. You know there is a red line. You just don't know where it is.
Yeah, and the other thing is because I write now for Epoch Times and I write for other media, and everything I write is negative about China basically. So I get attacked by Wu Mao a lot online, and of course they know who I am because my Twitter account and everything has my real name on it. It's very easy to find out who I am, and so I don't know to what extent they record those names, in China, but I would assume that they do because I do know other people that were having Twitter battles and things, and then they had problems trying to go to China or trying to get a visa or whatever. So yeah, and I won't even fly on a flight that has a layover in Hong Kong or transit in Hong Kong. I'm afraid to even do that.
But what do your friends in China say about what you're doing now?
Well, they don't know.
They don't know?
Again, the firewall prevents them from knowing. Plus, none of them can speak English. It's the weirdest thing. It's so strange that probably the Chinese government wants to arrest me, or certainly if I set foot in China, probably. We think they were looking for me in Mongolia. We think, but we don't know for sure. And then I'll get a call from one of my teammates in China, and we'll just talk, and we're still friends and same relationship we always had. And it's really crazy.